So I'm convinced that in my last birth, I did something very evil. The reason why I say that is, I have to follow a session after what Swamiji did in the morning. And this is also the session before lunch. And we are running late. And therefore, what had initially been planned for 45 minutes has to be condensed in less time. Now, there are few ways that I thought I could do that. One is actually speak less. B is speak faster. C is actually to leave out some of the parts that I was talking about. So I'm going to try to do a combination of all three. Many people say that Indians speak very fast, especially for people who are from outside India. I apologize in advance if you find the pace at which I'm speaking fast, but I'll try to hold myself as much as possible. So what are we going to talk about today? It is about marketing to women consumers in Asia. There is a revolution taking place. There is a revolution taking place. A few months back, there was a discussion in a show hosted by Fareed Zakaria where he called a set of experts from Middle East and asked them what would happen in Middle East. And most of them said, Syria, Iran, Egypt, nothing major is going to change. A few weeks later, we had the Arab Spring. Now, why am I talking about the Arab Spring and the revolution when we are talking about marketing to women consumers in Asia? There is a reason. 3 years back, BCG wrote a book. The authors actually had a thesis that there is a revolution which was taking place. And this is these are the first two paragraphs of that book. There is a revolution taking place. It's an economic and social revolution. There may be no violence, but if you look at it, there is upheaval, there is turmoil, there is radical change which is happening. Our research clearly showed that there is significant change which is happening in women consumers across the world. We researched close to 15,000 consumers across the world, about 5,000 in Asia, and what we found that the revolution is happening, and the revolution is happening in a way that women consumers are voting with their wallets. They are expressing dissatisfaction. They are not satisfied with what is being offered. And that actually has significant implication for what companies, advertising agencies, and the society needs to do. Now, what Yoni and I will try to do in the next few minutes is to share our perspective based on the research that we've done and lay out what are the key themes that emerge from the work that we've done. One disclaimer. There was, some degree of disquiet that I had when I said, it's going to be me talking about women consumers. Right? Because one of the things is that men simply don't understand women that well. And the primary reason is because we don't listen well enough. Therefore, the idea of this presentation is not to have the last words of two consultants standing on the stage and sharing this with all of you, but really to initiate a discussion. I think we need to be humble enough to understand that there is pieces that we know, but there are pieces that we don't know as well. The first story that I wanted to share with you is that of a woman consumer in Bombay. She lives in a place near Dharavi, not in Dharavi itself. She is a part of the group that we call the next billion. These are the consumers who are just entering the world of consumption. She lives in a small house. She has some of the basic consumer durables. There is a television, there is a refrigerator. She shops at the local grocery. When we asked her, why do you shop at the local grocery and not at the organized retail? She said, the local grocer offers me credit. If I can't buy half a kg of oil, he gives me in a pouch. So there is something which is talking about this consumer who actually wants more. And she wants more on different dimensions. I'm not going to read out the words on this page, but tell you a story which baffled me when we met. She's 27 years old. She has one kid, 6-year-old, who actually goes to a school. She wants more for her son. She is sending him to an English medium private school. Even though the family earns 12,000 rupees, she spends 2,000 rupees of that on the education of her son. She wants more. When we were standing in her house, I saw the different things that she was using, and there was one thing which puzzled me. She had 2 detergents in her house. She had a bag of local detergents, and she had a small sachet of Surf Excel. And I asked her, so why do you have two of these here? Surf Excel is the most expensive detergent in the market. So, why is it that you bought this? And she said, for all my clothes, I use this other detergent. For the white shirt that my son wears to school, I use Surf Excel. Because I don't want him to look dirty when he goes to school. She cares about brands. She cares about brands that deliver. She is very brand conscious. And she is willing to pay more for brands that deliver to the promise that they make. What was the challenge that women consumers have? So there's a lot of numbers on this chart, but the question that we asked was, what is the biggest challenge that you face? This is the data that comes out. There is a triple whammy of time. I don't have time for myself. There are too many conflicting demands. I wish there were 30 hours in the day. We met Qin Lui. She's a 31-year-old Chinese housewife who lives in Shanghai. She's well educated. She has a 7-year-old daughter. Once she started working, it added income to the family. Then she had her kid, and she found that she could actually not cope up with the conflicting demands on her time. Work, husband, son, education, and that's the challenge that we find more and more women consumers talking about, challenge of time. That's the single biggest issue, that's the single biggest concern that women consumers have. And we men actually don't help in that cause. So the chart below actually shows what percentage of respondents talked about having sole or shared responsibility. For grocery shopping, 88% of women had the responsibility. 60% had the primary responsibility. In India, that number is 65%. In China, it is 60%. In some of the Western countries, it is better. If you look at laundry, 84%, 64% primary responsibility of women. So you have a situation where you have more demands on time, driven by the fact that many times the man of the house or the men of the house don't contribute. One of the other women that we met during the course of this research said, I have a son, I have a daughter. When guests come, I expect my daughter to go and get the water. My son will park his backside and talk about what he's doing, right? So that's the cultural DNA, probably a little bit more in Asia than what we find in other parts. This is my favorite slide of the entire presentation. So we asked women, how happy are you and how stressed are you? The chart starts at age 18. That's the time that women are the happiest. You are not going to college, you don't have anything to support. And then you see the happiness level starts declining for various reasons. It's either education or in the Indian context, you start getting married, and on the top chart, you see the satisfaction with happiness declines. In some situations, it actually marginally increases, after a couple of years of marriage, and then the first kid happens, and it's supposed to be a source of joy and happiness. But guess what? The workload increases, and therefore this happiness with having a kid increases, but the happiness reduces because there's lack of time. If you look at the stress levels, they are following the same pattern. Then the number 2 kid happens, and there is a steeper decline. I asked one of the women that we met as to, what really was the turning point. She said, I had my first kid, that was fine, and then I had twins. And she said, I can tell you, from one kid to the second kid, my work did not double, it became exponential. And that's really the key challenge that women face. And what you find is it keeps on going down and down and down till the point that the kids are out of the rebellious teens. So, one of the people that we met said, my daughter thought that I was out to get her till she turned 18. And that's the time where you see that both in terms of happiness and stress levels, there is an increase that starts happening. We are all here because, not because we want to hear stories of what women are feeling happy or unhappy about, but is that an important consumer segment? The global consumption 2 years back was about $18 trillion. $12 trillion out of that was controlled by women. 2/3 of the global consumption is actually controlled by women. If you look at economies, more developed economies, the numbers are at 70, 75% plus. If you look at some of the Asian economies, and Yuni will talk in greater detail about that, the number is lesser. A few weeks back, we finished the update of the research which we had done in 2008, and we found that in almost all Asian economies, the degree of control on spends by women is increasing. So if women actually control such a huge amount of consumption, do marketers actually cater to that? The answer is a resounding no. The level of dissatisfaction that women consumers have is listed on this chart. More than 40% of women are dissatisfied with financial services, consumer durables, and they are screaming out loud to say, please make products for me, please have proposition that actually caters to me. The same chart for men is in the low 20s. So it's not a question of saying, everybody is dissatisfied with what is available, but look at the gap which is there. The big mistakes, if you look at the categories which actually do well, it's not by coincidence that if you look at most of the people who are in important positions in many of those industries are actually men. When was the last time that many men here actually changed a diaper on a regular basis, and not only because, in the words of the Swamiji, somebody nagged them to do that? When was the last time that somebody actually used a cooking oil or figured out what is the right packaged good to buy? I won't go through the entire list in the interest of time, but if there are a few things to take away from this, is the 3 things that men marketeers don't do well is the first is listening to the ladies. They don't listen. They hear, they don't listen. There are many marketeers in the room, I'm sure, here today. Most marketing organizations have a large market research budget, which is then done by somebody else. And you hear a third-hand view of what's actually happening on the ground. Some people actually claim that's not the case. We actually do listen to women consumers. I listen to what my wife says, I listen to what my mother says. Yes, but for most people in that senior position, 95% of the target segment for many of these categories are not the people that they listen to. So listen more. The second is the phenomena which I would call the make it pink phenomena. We have come out with a new cell phone, we have come out with a new car. We want to cater to the women audience. What do? Make it pink. One of the women consumers that we'd met told us, I go out to buy a shirt, I go out to buy a dress. I love the color pink. I love the color pink, but I also know that there are hundreds of other colors available. So please don't give me 35 shades of pink. Please give me a broader palette to play around with. The third thing, don't change offerings from year to year. And this is related to one of the discussions that was happening in the previous panel discussion. Many organizations live in the QSQT phenomena. So it's not Qayamat se Qayamat tak, it is quarter se quarter tak. And therefore, you have to come out with something new. So you have to come out with something new. But the fact is you can't come out with something truly differentiated every 2-3 months. Yes, it's great to have more innovation, but for women consumers, what is more important is relevant, significant innovation rather than Me Too products, Me Too changes, which are marginally different. The reason is women consumers, on an average, are more conscious of the price that they are paying, of the value that they are getting from the category. I want to do a quick snap poll here. So only the men in the audience, when was the last time that you did a grocery purchase? So people who have done in the last 2 weeks, at least once. Okay? People who have done the monthly grocery purchase, men. What is the price of a toothpaste, whichever brand that you use, 200 gram, 250 grams? Our research showed that 98% of men, at the time that they were walking out of the store, did not know the price of the toothpaste that they had bought. They were off by more than 20%. The same percentage for women was 50%. So,
it depends on whether you research at malls or at Kirana stores.
Kirana stores.
Impossible. Because they go there for value.
Yes, but when was the last time that people changed the brand of the toothpaste that they actually use?
Not very often.
Precisely.
Why should they?
No, that's perfectly fine, but you should then know what you're buying and what you're buying for. Yes, but
You know the price.
absolutely,
Check your research.
we have. There are some companies who actually get it. A few examples, I'm not going to get into the detail, but I think if you look at the set of companies here, they do follow the piece around listening. They do follow the piece about actually creating products which save time. Gerber is probably a great example of a company who's done that successfully. The one thing which I would like to, end with, one of the the people that we had talked during this research was the founder of The Limited, and he made a comment. So he has been marketing to largely women, to a certain extent men, over the last 40 plus years. And he said, you can't really sell to women assuming that they are men wearing skirts. They're actually fundamentally different. In the next piece, I'd like Yoni to actually talk about how the Asian woman is different, and if there is actually one Asian woman or not. Yoni.